Barry walked towards them, scruffing at his short, reddish beard with one giant fist. Barry Burton was only 6 feet tall, but built like a truck. His only passion, outside of his family and his weapons collection, was weightlifting, and it showed. "Don't sweat it, Chris. Marini will call us in the second he smells trouble. Irons is just pulling your chain." Chris nodded again, but he didn't like it. Hell, Enrico Marini and Forrest Speyer were the only experienced soldiers in Bravo. Ken Sullivan was a good scout and a brilliant chemist, but in spite of his STARS training, he couldn't shoot the broadside of a barn. Richard Aiken was a top-rate communications expert, but he also lacked field experience. Rounding out the Bravo team was Rebecca Chambers, who'd only been with the STARS for 3 weeks, supposed to be some kind of medical genius. Chris had met her a couple of times, and she seemed bright enough, but she was just a kid. It's not enough. Even with all of us, it may not be enough. He cracked open his soda, but didn't drink any, wondering instead what the STARS were going up against. Billy's pleading, desperate words echoing through his mind yet again. "They're going to kill me, Chris. They're going to kill everyone who knows. Meet me at Emmy's now. I'll tell you everything." Exhausted, Chris stares off into space, alone in the knowledge that the savage murders were only the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Barry stood by Chris's desk for a minute, trying to think of something else to say, but Chris didn't look like he was in the mood for conversation. Barry shrugged inwardly and headed back to where Joseph was going through files. Chris was a good guy, but he took things too hard sometimes. He'd get over it as soon as it was their turn to step in. Man, it was hot. Seemingly endless trickles of sweat rolled down his spine, gluing his t-shirt to his broad back. The air conditioning was on the fritz, as usual, and even with the door open, the tiny STARS office was uncomfortably warm. "Any luck?" Joseph looked up at him from the pile of papers, a rueful smirk on his lean face. "You kidding? It's like someone hid the damn thing on purpose." Barry sighed and scooped up a handful of files. "Maybe Jill found it. She was still here when I left last night, going through the witness reports for about the 100th time." "What are you two looking for anyway?" Brad asked. Barry and Joseph both looked over at Brad, still sitting at the computer console, headset on. He'd be monitoring Bravo's progress through their flyby of the forested district, but for now he looked bored as hell. Joseph answered him. Barry claims that there are floor plans in here somewhere on the old Spencer estate. Some architectural digest that came out when the house was built." He paused, then grinned at Brad. "Except I'm thinking that old Barry's gone senile on us. They say memory is the first thing to go." Barry scowled good-naturedly. "Old Barry could easily kick your ass into next week, little man." Joseph looked at him mock seriously. "Yeah, but would you remember it afterwards?" Barry chuckled, shaking his head. He was only 38, but he'd been with the Raccoon STARS for 15 years, making him the senior member. He endured numerous old age jokes, mostly from Joseph. Brad cocked an eyebrow. "The Spencer kids." Ken Sullivan was a good scout and a brilliant chemist, but in spite of his STARS training, he couldn't shoot the broadside of a barn. Richard Aiken was a top-rate communications expert